Many of the problems often are further reaching. And so what is the easy and the most effective way to deal with it? Put a Band-Aid. Don't cross boundaries, don't talk to your peer, and just put your head down and get your stuff done. I did my job. That's the attitude. And that is culture. You don't want that culture in the company.
Hello, 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 hello. Welcome to the Revolving Change podcast. I'm Joanna, one of your regular hosts here. And here with me today is our founder, Mr. Jorge Lobo.
AKA the analog dinosaur, as usual.
Yes. As usual, the analog dinosaur will provide valuable insights for us today. But before anything else, if you're a part of our free core membership, the show notes is available to you through our learning portal. And if you're not yet a core member, you can just sign up for free below and you'll get access to all of our show notes from the very beginning of this podcast. Yeah, plus plenty of other content.
What is the subject today?
So the subject today is actually problem solving. And yeah, wouldn't we want to solve all our problems? Today we're going to be discussing about what it is, how we go about problem solving, as well as tips and tricks on how to implement effective problem solving in work and maybe even at home, take it out of the job, because the skills you learn here actually,
well, I mean, you
the skills you learn here.
And, okay.
Well, I'm saying, the skills you learn here aren't just for work. You can even implement them at home,
Yeah, but
dealing with relational
problems. We don't give living advice. We're not lawyers. And in the case of divorce, we assume no responsibility whatsoever. So
yes, please hire lawyers.
It's your decision. Yeah, okay. We don't play lawyers on TV or in podcasts either. So
no. Okay. No. All right, so let's hop into today's topic. One of the things that's really interesting about problem solving that we talk about here at Revolving Change is the fact that problem solving is different for managers and leaders.
Very much.
Do you want to elaborate on that, Jorge?
Sure. Yeah, that's one of the cornerstones of our program, that managers, first of all, don't have most of the time developed advanced leadership skills. Therefore, their focus is more technical. I mean, managers, mid-managers, but junior and mid-managers particularly, are managing by the numbers. They have their production reports, they have their yield reports, they have to report on customer service levels, on schedule attainments, on scrap and rework. So these are numbers that, when done properly, when we have proper management systems, and you have a short intervals of verification and follow up, and say maybe hourly sometimes, certainly by shift or by day, and you see there's a variance, you need to understand why there is a variance and you need to take action to fix that variance and prevent it in the future. Now, because of the technical orientation, this, when I'm saying non-manufacturing, could be a bank, all right? Customer service, can be customer complaints, can be errors, computational errors, whatever. Their focus is going to be more on the technical solution of the problem than on helping people to be part of the solution. They will be part of the solution, but their focus is going to be more technical. Whereas the higher up you move in the ladder, you're going to have managers that will focus on the people side also, not only on the technical side, because, I mean, at the end of the day, the bottom line is king. If you make no money in business, unlike Revolving Change, which profit is not our target, it's the consequence of what we do, not the objective. Companies need to produce results because of the stakeholders that are breathing down their neck and want their quarterly results, for example, for public companies. So their focus is going to be more on empathy, is going to be more on following up on people, is going to be more on teamwork, cooperation, and on the skills that they learned with us. Because, I mean, the many projects we've done at high level with the larger, mid-size and larger companies, that was the key for problem solving. Differentiating both and then percolating the knowledge of dealing with people down to mid-management and lower management. Did I answer your question?
Yeah, of course. Yes, okay. Yes. Yeah,
I went too long.
Yeah, so between those two, Jorge, is there a good balance of both, like technical and people-centric problem solving? Like, can you
No, I don't
give
think there
specific
is.
examples about each one?
Yeah, no, I don't think there is because it's circumstantial. It will depend on the situation. If you have, say, a major order, if you're working on a, let's say you're manufacturing, you're producing, you're constructing a nuclear plant,
Mm.
you have no room for error, right? I mean, you're dealing with highly sensitive and secure, or you're in the arms industry. You're dealing with very sensitive information, maybe even technically dangerous information and technology. There is no room for being too people oriented, and you're going to be more technically oriented.
Mm.
The excellent leader will do both. But now we're talking about leadership, and there's a difference between,
Yeah.
we discussed this before, it's part of our program,
Hmm.
the difference between managing and leading. There are
Hmm.
different set of skills. There's a lot of overlap. One doesn't preclude the other, but that's why we find seldom excellent leaders, which are also good managers, and even more seldom excellent managers, which are very good leaders.
Mm.
So the example is,
Yeah.
depending on the circumstance, you're going to have more of the one or the other, and will depend also on the value and the culture, the values and the culture of the company. That should not be
Hmm.
underestimated. Because when we
Mm.
start at the top, the culture is absolutely fundamental to set the direction and the guardrails on how problem solving will work.
Really, how is that? Like, let's talk about that for a minute there.
Okay. If you have a culture where problem solving is people oriented but also results oriented, so you have good leadership, top level leadership, you're going to keep the balance as a leader on both. So you're going to push for the results while you bring the people along, you coach them, you monitor them, but you monitor how does cooperation work, how does communication work. You recurringly allow or insist on communication training, on listening training, on perception management, on feedback techniques, on management styles, how you deal with confrontation, because
Mm.
very often you need confrontation when you're solving a problem. It's part of the techniques you need to use.
Yeah.
If you're having a fire, I'm saying fire in a figurative sense that there's a major problem going on in production, you're not going to just get the people to your office and say, well, let's bring everybody a coffee. Let's have a talk about this problem that we're having is shutting down production. You're going to be on with your hair on fire outside, a la Elon Musk sleeping on the production line, making sure problems are solved until things run smoothly again. And then you're going to go back
Mm.
and do more research and reward people and motivate people.
Mm.
So um, the top level will be more concerned with both. Culture is indeed very important. And it is a very important subject and sometimes dicey because culture is unique not just to the company itself but also to the people that apply the culture. You have a culture of involvement, you have a culture of people being empathetic with people, involving people, but you also have a culture of solving problems when urgency calls. So you need
Mm.
to have this ability to balance both and put aside one for the other that gets priority. If you have a fire, figuratively speaking, you're not going to spend time nurturing people. You're going to have to go out there all out and solve that particular problem that is stopping your production or affecting your results. And then you're going to go back and reassemble your troops, reassemble your tribe,
Hmm.
use, and this is where the culture comes in, is use the example of the problem that there was and the solution that was applied, and do the exercise of going back to understand why did the problem happen? How did it come
Hmm.
about?
Hmm.
How did we solve it? Was it a band-aid or did we really solve the problem? Because unfortunately, too often we're putting band-aids on problems and not getting to the real cause, the source of the
Hmm.
problem,
Hmm.
and involve the team, whichever level you're working at. And here is culture. Because if the company doesn't have the culture that involving people and problem solving, then your problem solving will be a band-aid collection. You're not going to
Mm.
percolate down in the organization to the root cause and be able to solve it. And you're going to continuously putting fires out. And I think is not alien, not unusual to hear. We are putting fires all the time. It's one of the first things we
Hmm.
find when we get to a corporation and we do our assessment and evaluations. The first thing is when you ask managers, and what is your day? X percentage of their time they're firefighting. they're putting fires off. That means there is no problem-solving culture or no clear culture to help them overcome that on a consistent basis.
Yeah. Yeah, no, I do agree with that because sometimes I've experienced it myself before.
Of course you have.
I'm trying to implement a solution or, to a certain problem, but then either management won't listen or the management doesn't have a culture of which I'm able to execute on my own and solve it. And then there's still the issue of like, oh, needing approval for every single thing you do, even when solving a problem. So I do
There is even
completely
more to it.
understand.
There's even more to
Yeah.
it because you may be facing a problem, and when you start digging into it, you find that it's cross-functional. It's another department. It's another part of the process. It's beyond your responsibility. So you need to work with
Yeah.
your peer. If that peer needs to work with another peer, and as a matter of fact, all of you need to work with upper management. So many of the problems often are further reaching. And so what is the easy and the most effective way to deal with it? Put a Band-Aid. Don't cross
Yeah.
boundaries. Don't talk to your peer, and just put your head down and get your stuff done. I did
Yeah.
my job. That's the attitude. And that is culture. You don't want that culture in the company. The culture, you want the company to say, hey, this doesn't begin here nor end here. I'm in the middle of the process. I need to talk to the guy that comes after me and the girl that comes before me. And we together need to address this. And
Yeah.
that's culture.
Together.
Yes.
Yeah. Yeah. It's
But the
absolutely.
culture means you need to have a culture where people are not scared of saying we have a problem. Where
Raising the
people
flag.
are,
Yeah.
yes, that people are open to say, hey, listen, I think we got a problem coming from your department. Let's have a talk about it, see how I can help you with it. And when you have a
Yeah.
culture that people are in their ivory towers and in their turf and they're protecting their turf and they don't want people to look into what they do, and you need approvals and authorizations to cross boundaries like you were describing, then that culture is not going to be conducive to effective, lasting problem solving. Definitely not.
Yeah. So you touched on a little bit about it's part of the culture to actually raise flags like, oh, hey, we have a problem with this. And I remember I would associate that with initiative. Is initiative an integral part of problem solving? Because sometimes, people see a problem and they just go, yeah, it's not my problem, or it's not my department's problem. Let them handle that.
The lower you are in the management structure, the more often you find it. Also because sometimes there is an initiative is a very wide concept. You can take the initiative to do nothing, or you can take the initiative to take action.
Yeah.
You can take the initiative to avoid facing reality and stick your head in the sand like the ostrich and wait for the storm to weather over, blow out. At the end of the day, is going to be managers being trained that the common effort, the sharing of solutions, the sharing of communication will be beneficial to everybody. And the key is going to be leadership. If you have a leader that will publicly reward, and reward is not necessarily monetary, it can be praise, can be the mention in a meeting of somebody and the person's accomplishment. Praise people that raise the flag and people that take the initiative to make a suggestion. And you have a culture where people will not be put down or laughed at or ignored because they're lower level or because of gender. I mean, gender is a major issue when have a one gender, a lady proposing a solution, and males are laughing at it and not taking it serious. I'm stereotyping, yes, I am, and I apologize if some of our audience gets offended. It's not meant to be, but it's often a reality. I mean, we found it
Yeah.
so many times. So all those elements are part of culture. And when you get to initiative, the initiative will depend on the culture, how people feel empowered, feel enabled to take action. Even if the action is red flag, I got a problem, I need somebody to help me, I don't know how to figure this out. Which is inherently extremely, extremely dangerous to do in some companies because that means you're being brand marked and your career is on the short path, on the quick path to exit. So
Yeah, right. Sometimes if you're the person that consistently points out the problem,
you're the bad
people
news
start
bringer,
becoming,
right? You're always
yeah.
that bad. Yeah, no, we don't want to hear you. You got
Yeah.
problems, we are
Oh,
paying you to solve them. I mean, how many times have we
yeah.
heard that in surveys that we do with clients? And that's one
Yeah.
of them, well, how do you get the reaction when you say we got a problem? I say, well, I'm paid to solve it. Well, that's very helpful. Well, we know, but maybe you need assistance. Maybe we need cross-departmental cooperation. Maybe we need top management support, and top management is saying, no, that's a budget, do it with a budget. Now, if I have a 1 kilo bag and you give me 15 kilos of potatoes and you want them to put in that one bag, I know physically I'm not going to be able to do it. Now, if you're just going to
Mm,
insist that that's all I get, well, we're going to have to live with the problem, right? I don't have a
mm,
solution. So
mm.
that's what I'm saying. It starts with culture. It starts at the top.
Yeah. It's in, so there's, speaking of culture and speaking of initiatives and trying to really solve problems, right now there's a trend going on where people who will consciously not suggest solutions to certain problems because they're afraid that that will be that responsibility will be given to them. And
Okay.
it's there's a right, like, and there's a thing that whoever does the most gets given more jobs, so it doesn't make a lot of sense, like
Sorry,
they're
I'm laughing
punishing
because this
productivity.
is called punishing performance. That's a was a
Yeah.
major problem in the 80s and 90s.
So it's
And
coming
as
back.
oh, well, if you say so. I mean, I haven't found it lately in our clients, but maybe our clients because we've been training them for so long and so well, and they are extremely committed people to change. That we don't see that anymore, or haven't seen it that often. Not late. I haven't seen it in the last few years.
Hmm.
But and I think it's also cultural. Some parts of the world are more prone to that than other parts of the world. When you have larger social differences in the levels of management and you have gender issues, you're going to have more of that than when you have a more integrated workforce, that people are more open and work closer together. But yeah, it used to be in a we used to call that I just said it, punishing performance. Sorry.
Yes.
Yeah, I need to sleep more. Punishing performance, which means because you're a great performer, you're doing great, instead of, and this comes to, it's part of what we cover in our confrontation program. Instead of going confronting the low performers and getting them to perform better, it's much easier and comfortable as a manager, and this is not leadership, it's management. Just give it to the guy or the gal that is doing great. Give him more work. She can handle it. He can handle it.
Yeah.
And let the
Yeah.
lazy guys that are not doing their work like they should and not delivering on time and delivering substandard quality, let them get away with it. It's called
Yeah.
punishing performance, which at the end of the day, you're going to lose the good people and you're going to be stuck with the less performing people.
Yeah. Yeah. So what do you say about that? So that's really an upper management kind of thing to identify.
Well, that's a management problem. It's a management problem.
Mm,
Starts at the low level already because, and I think it's a question of if you are, okay, let's talk about how can we help a manager, a junior manager that is facing that, right? From peers. Peers say, it's not my problem, it's your problem. I don't have anything to do with it. You figure it out. Well, you can involve people in proposing how can we solve we have a problem, can we agree that we share the problem. So you need a strategic approach to communication to begin with. Let's agree first on the definition that we have a problem that across my department to your department and across processes. Once we have agreed that, then let's agree to try something together to fix it.
mm,
And then pick a tool, pick a fishbone diagram, pick brainstorming, bring any of those many tools, which they are, they're not very difficult, they're easy to apply. Pick one, propose it, and just run a meeting applying that tool on that problem together with your peer, maybe your peers, 2, 3 people, and two, three of your people. Make a team of 6, 7 people, or 8 people, and approach it. Try to solve the problem. If that tool didn't work, try another tool, but start creating the culture from the bottom up. I understand that maybe the
mm-hmm,
top is not following that culture. It doesn't matter.
mm-hmm,
Well, it does matter.
mm-hmm.
I meant it doesn't stop you as a junior and mid manager to still apply it for yourself and learn the skill and maybe solve problems. And if your company is open and recognizes your initiative, and this is as much as important as a junior or mid managers, and they see that you're taking that kind of initiative, that can be career promoting. They'll say, hey, this manager junior is taking initiative of applying problem solving tools and is engaged in the progress of the business. We want to keep an eye on that person. So,
Yeah.
and if that doesn't work, you're learning a new skill. You're becoming
Yeah.
more
You're
experienced, and you
learning
can take
anyway.
it with you
Yeah.
wherever you go. Yeah, makes you a more
Exactly. Yeah, I
valuable
do agree with
asset.
that.
Yeah.
Okay, so you did touch about how to start problem solving, but by using different tools, right? How do you start? What are the different stages of problem solving? How do you even begin to go about
Well,
problem solving?
the first step is you need to recognize you have a problem, right?
Yeah, for
And I
sure.
know
So
it's
how do you?
well, yeah, but most of the time that's where the big stumbling block is. We don't have a problem. You have a problem. I don't have a problem. You have a problem. It's like with change, right? Oh, we all love change, but start with everybody else. I'm the last one.
Yeah.
Problem solving often is having to admit, and that's part of the culture again. If you recognize a problem and acknowledge a problem, should not be an admission, should be an acknowledgement, shouldn't have a taint of color, and it should not reflect on your performance in a negative way. It should rather reflect in a positive way that you recognize there is a problem. That's the first step. The next step is understanding the cause of the problem. That is another, I would say, can of worms where often people get stuck and they deal with symptoms. So we do symptom treatment proliferation. We put band-aids everywhere. I remember once, I will not say which airline it was, I was boarding. I won't say the airport either because you probably can figure out which airline it was. And I enter the plane and look into the cockpit, and they have post-it notes everywhere in the cockpit, everywhere. And I stick my head in. I mean, I'm always with a big mouth, and I tell. I mean, the cockpit was. I mean, the captain and the pilot were there. I said, I hope your post-it notes don't fall off in mid-flight because maybe you have a crash landing, don't we? And he just left. And it seems that one of the two in the cockpit got so upset with my comment that left the cockpit, and the flight was delayed because he refused to fly the plane. And then I
Got
had the
insulted. Yeah.
supervisor coming to me and blaming me that it was my fault that the plane was delayed. So you raise the problem. I mean, it didn't look inspiring safety and security. The fact that I
No,
was
as a
supposed to,
passenger. Yeah.
yeah. I mean, like didn't particularly. I mean, I'm not scared of flying, and I've flown. I mean, I used to have frequent travel cards from half a dozen airlines simultaneously. That's how much I've been flying. But no, it was not confidence inspiring. So again, you bring the news, but you're a bad news bringer. So you automatically, you're the culprit. You are the cause of the problem. So having a culture that will encourage people to raise and not stigmatize people that raise a problem, that's going to be critical, very, very critical. So
Okay.
the first thing is recognize there's a problem and then go into what the cause is. And for the cause, you need the culture where people will start digging. I mean, there's tools, the 7 why, ask several times, most of the time, 7 times enough, why something is happening and why and why and why until you end up somewhere completely different than where you thought you were going to be. And the problem is, there are simple examples like you have a customer complains about a product and the product, it seems to be is damaged in transportation. So you look at the wrapping and you look how it's wrapped. So you give new instructions to wrap it better so it's more protected. So this takes, of course, a week, 2 weeks, 3 weeks. And then a month later, still the problem exists, but it's less often, but still you have products damaged and returns and customers are complaining. And of course, your production targets are not met because yada, yada. Bottom line, you start understanding more and asking why, and it's because the design of the packaging was not in line with a change that was made to the product. The product design changed, the packaging was not adapted, and all of a sudden there's a mismatch. Now, were you going to go back to the old design of the product? No, you're going to adapt the packaging. But that means the design process, not stopped at packaging. So the solution to the problem was not in the packaging area, it was in the design area, where they should have looked at packaging at the same
Right.
time they modified the product. But that you
So
only
it's
achieve when you
really,
go and really understanding, asking several times why, and go into the detail across boundaries, across departments, across processes to understand the
Mhm.
real cause of the problem.
Okay, so now that you've identified the problem, like, and you've gone through the 7 whys, and not 7 whys, but multiple whys, what's the next step? Problem solving.
Solve it. Take action. So, I mean, this again, I mean, culture would play a role. But at this point in time, you are taking action in terms of what are we going to do? What are the actions we need to take? Who's going to take them? When are we going to take them? And how are we going to verify that the actions were effective? Because that's one area where often problem solving fails and falls through the cracks. Oh, we're going to do this. Okay, let's do. Who's going to do it? Well, somebody will. When somebody will, nobody will, right? So you need somebody
Yeah.
assigned, responsible for doing it. You need a deadline because it's affecting other processes and affecting customer service and other problems, other impacts. You need to know who's going to do it by when, but then you need to verify. So you keep monitoring the returns, for instance, or you do an additional quality control check when things are being packed, in the example I used, to see that the fitting is good, is a good fit. And you do it maybe for some time, and when you find that you don't have no errors anymore, you can just retrieve that particular quality control step. But you need to make sure that the process for the future has been adjusted. The packaging will be taken care of at the moment the product is modified. There will be a verification. Does packaging require adaptation? Yes or no? So now you solve the problem, you anticipated the future that it will not happen again. Because if we solved it, but don't take actions to anticipate the next time we do product modifications, then we're going to wind up in the same problem again.
Yeah. But what
Now,
about, go
yeah.
ahead.
No, I was going to say that, in some companies we have the action needed program and other programs we have implemented where the culture allowing of the culture and one. As a matter of fact, this has been a tool that has enabled us helping companies change their culture. Put a very simple tool in where people can report an opportunity. We don't call them problems, we call them opportunity. So it's for improvement, for change. Many of them are problems, and very often there were problems that people didn't even realize were there. They were not visible and they were not tangible at the moment. So, but a worker sees it, a supervisor sees it, but the manager that is running a whole production line doesn't see it. So this person will say, well, by using a range of the different measure or using a different tool is going to reduce my workload by so much, it's going to increase my productivity, I can do this and this more. So there are very simple systems we have put in place where people can raise it. We teach them to focus on return on investment because sometimes you have 80% of the effort going to solve 20% of the problem. You want to do the other way around. You want to invest 20% to solve 80% of the issues you have and make it measurable. You know that Revolving Change, we are absolutely passionate about measuring everything that we do, and problem solving should be measurable. Companies should know how much effort they're putting into problem solving and what is the return they're getting on that investment. And most of it is measurable. Of course, you have motivation, but motivation can be measured. I mean, we measure motivation, we measure involvement, we measure satisfaction, we measure everything except the quality of the canteen food. All of that can be measured also. We have ways to do that.
Yeah. Okay. So to summarize, you identify the problem, the actual problem, the source, the main source of the
real
problem.
Yes.
Yeah. Right. Aside from identifying the problem, the next is the solutions to the problem. And then you execute.
Yep. You create an action
and then
plan. You create an action plan and
correct.
Execute.
Right. And when you
the action
execute,
plan includes the verification, right? The follow-up and verification.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah. So the action plan includes the follow-up and the verification, as well as future implementation to prevent the same mistake from occurring again?
The future prevention.
Yeah, that's pretty solid. So well, you did mention culture before, but whose main responsibility is it to monitor the entire process?
We don't like to talk about entire process. We're talking about, problems. Problem solving is a generic across the board topic that companies should have addressed. Now we are back in culture, right? We do have problem solving tools, and we encourage people to be open. We encourage people to work across boundaries. We encourage people to work together, to be open, not to be defensive, to learn how to give feedback, to communicate, to be good listeners, to learn to confront, all the skills that we teach. At the end of the day, the training of management, and also when you use the word initiative, very often it comes down to leaders and managers, or managers that will become leaders, to take the initiative to study and learn how to use the tools. Because the tools are relatively simple to use, the most difficult part is the people skills part. Learning how to give feedback and solicit feedback, accept feedback, deal with feedback, how to confront deviations on performance, how to be a good listener when people come and report a problem to you, etc. So those skills are extremely important. So when you have what is common to the company should be that those skills are widespread, that are recurringly trained, they are maintained, they're nurtured. Learning those skills is not like, you learn to ride a bicycle when you're a child and you stop riding a bicycle and 40 years later you get on a bike and you will ride the bike. You will not need to learn again how to ride a bike. But if you're a scuba diver, which I am too, or a skydiver, and you did stop for some time, first of all, your physical condition will change and there's safety risks. And number two, gear and technology have changed. So you need to adapt to the new conditions. So as people change all the time, nurturing, developing those skills on an ongoing basis and maintaining them is extremely important to have ongoing problem solving skills functioning well. Because you need all those skills. The technology and the techniques and the methods alone will not do it.
So you need all of the skills built up. Over time, though, then you'll see that there's going to be like compounding, just like interest. There's compounding effectivity to your problem solving, right? As you build up the skills, the better you get at problem solving.
Absolutely. But that's what you're addressing now is what happens when it becomes part of the culture. It becomes natural that I see a problem, I will raise an action needed or an improvement needed program document and get a group to work together and say, we need to do something about this. This is bothering me. I'm losing X% yield, or I'm losing X% machine time, or I'm having so many customer complaints on this topic. Let's have a look at it together. I mean, we need this improved. But that means everybody in the team at all levels, starting at the lower management, mid-management, top management, everybody have their noses pointed in the same direction. They have the same priorities, which comes to dynamic profiling of revolving change. Everybody has been trimmed to look at the same direction and follow the same priorities.
Okay, great. All right. So this is such a topic that we can go on and on about, as much as all our other topics. But we're going to absolutely close the topic about problem solving here. And we're going to transition into one of my favorite parts, wherein we're going to answer questions from the public, questions that they have experienced in real life related to our topic today, which is problem solving. And if you're listening today, if you're watching, don't worry, because we're definitely going to circle back on this topic or any other topics that we've talked about in the past in deeper levels. So make sure to drop your comments, questions, or suggestions in our comment box below, or send us a personal message, or just connect with us so that we can actually hear your voice. Because at the end of the day, Revolving Change is here for you to be able to implement lasting, measurable change in your life. So
I love to learn.
We want to hear from you.
I want to learn also from
True.
the experiences. I always learn a lot from our
Hmm.
mentees and trainees of the experiences they have, because there's always a
Yeah.
new circumstance, a new condition that, wow,
Yeah.
this. And I've been in this for decades and still find new situations
New
that I've never
things.
encountered before. Oh yeah,
Yeah. Yeah.
that's why you don't get me to
Okay.
retire. I mean, I'm having fun.
All right.
Let's have those
Okay. So,
questions.
yeah. So, first question, we have two questions today. The first question is titled, I have a master's in engineering, but I'm about to lose my job because my problem solving skills are non existent. What can I do to improve? Long story short, I'm 26 and I have a bachelor's of arts in physics and a master's of science in engineering. Unfortunately, due to my educational path, I've never taken a single actual engineering course. My grad school courses were no different from my physics courses, which are thermokinematics, dynamics, etc., but no practical engineering courses. I've been working for a small but growing company in the optics field as a manufacturing engineer for a year, and I feel I've been woefully underqualified since day one. There are things I do really well, such as process documentation and training, and I'm really a hard worker. I'm willing to do everything I need to do to succeed, but I'm about to lose my job because I have no real experience with problem solving, failure analysis, or anything of the sort. Just today, my boss told me I was the worst problem solver he has ever seen in an engineering position. And I'm worried not only that he's right, but also that no matter what I do, I'm just never going to get it. Do you guys think problem solving is an innate ability that some people just have and some people just don't? Or is it something I can work at and get good at? And if I can learn, what can I do to learn as soon as possible? What can I read? What classes can I take?
Wow, no, it's not innate. You can learn this. You can be a champion. You can become the best problem solver on planet Earth or on the galaxy if that's what you
Mhm,
want to be. Because you have
mhm,
a fantastic foundation of educational foundation. So you have knowledge. What you're
mhm.
lacking is, first of all, you're lacking a manager that's empathetic and supportive, which it doesn't sound you have. So
Yeah.
that's another
The
obstacle you're
manager
going to
was
have.
like, you're the
Yeah, and
worst problem solving.
right now,
Wow.
that's fine. I've been told that I'm the worst at many things, but then I want
Mm,
to hear how I'm going to be helped to become the best, right? Because
mm,
being told you're the worst and then you turn around is like putting a gun to your head and you're waiting for somebody to pull the trigger, which is the way
mm,
this person feels.
mhm,
So, I mean, from a managerial and leadership perspective, I think this person has been very poorly served and managed. But let's look at
mm.
what the person can do. Yeah, there's a lot of tools you can learn. I mean, I was thinking in your business, probably an FMEA, a failure mode effect analysis tool would be
Feel.
a good tool for you to learn to use. Very not very difficult to use, but you need systems behind it. So I don't know how the business process in your company work, if that, the data is there to do an FMEA. However, I think that more than the techniques, because you're a technically oriented person, is the people orientation you're lacking. And I think your whole company is lacking people orientation, because the way you were dealt with shows that they're not focusing on people, they're not focusing on empathy, on supporting, on development. They're focusing you have it and you don't, binary, right? Like in the
Mhm,
Colosseum with Caesar.
mm.
We should have moved beyond that no matter where we are, particularly in a high tech business, in a smaller company, because a small company depends a lot more on the power of individual workers than a large company that has a much larger pool of resources. So,
Mhm,
personally, I would say there is no guarantee that whatever you're going to learn and you're going to do is going to save your career, because maybe your manager will not appreciate what you do. But definitely for the future is develop people skills and then
mm,
apply techniques to people skills. Learn to confront in a constructive way. Learn to give, solicit, receive feedback. Extremely important.
mm,
Learn how to help others to learn to listen. Listening skills are so
mm.
important. They're so underrated and they're so undertrained or not trained at all. I mean, look at how many hours of listening training, skills training any of us ever had. That much. So focus on those people skills that will enable you to use the techniques and technology that you know. And then you can use, and explore more problem solving tools. There's plenty out there. Like I was saying, the FMEA seems to me something that would work for you based on what you described. But focus on people. Focus on people. People skills.
Okay. All right. Okay, so let's move on to our second question for today. Our second question is titled, How to Improve Employees' Critical Thinking and Problem-Solving Skills. Hello, I manage a team of 25 with heavy workload. One team member cannot complete most tasks on her own and is often coming to others for help. This includes both technical skills and basic skills like finding a file. The role is expected to solve problems on their own through critical inquiry. The amount of time I've been investing in fielding questions is impacting my own work, as I have to do it myself to even be able to answer her questions. When she comes to me with questions, I often say, what steps have you tried? And what do you think the issue is? Or what are some things you can try? But she always responds with, I don't know, or I can't think of anything. Or she will give incorrect answers if I ask a direct question like, does this look like a zebra or a koala like we talked about last time? I can tell she gets frustrated and digs in when I ask these questions. She often says that she needs instructions to do work, but we don't work in a field where that is possible because every problem is different. I have said this to her directly. I now have to have subsequent conversations about this issue, which led to further action if not resolved within a certain time frame. And I'm wondering, how can I help coach or train her in these skills so we don't get to that point? What I'm trying hasn't worked. I'd also welcome any courses or anything else that could help, or any advice on how to frame this conversation, because although I have a really good template, I am nervous and I'm always welcome for any advice.
Wow. First of all, I think that manager or manageress has a huge span of control. What was it, 20-some people? That's huge. That's huge. So there's only a limited amount of time and capacity this manager or manageress has to deal with each one of the people, the subordinates, which also means that when one takes more attention, probably others get neglected, and others in the team are going to feel, oh, that lazy one or that not so smart one is taking all the time and resources of management. So it's a touchy, dicey situation, I think, because the first thing is the mindset. I think needs to be worked on. This person's mindset is defeated from the start. It doesn't have the mindset, I want to do it, just is like the person that wants training and gets under the shower, turns on the shower, says, train me. No, people need to go and take action and be part of the solution.
You mean the person that the manager is asking? Yeah, the subordinate. Okay,
yeah. Needs to take, so the mindset of the subordinate is the first challenge, I think. Because with that kind of mindset, it's going to be very hard to train that person, because the person's going to say, well, I don't understand. And then what do you do, right? So I think the first thing is work on, maybe help this person on mindset, explain the kind of mindset you as a manager want from this subordinate. And the next thing I'm probably going to focus on would be on expectations management, and have a clear understanding with this person. And we have a very clear process on how to set, if you hear this and you think we can help you with a, one-on-one, I'd be happy to spend a little bit of time with you going through what are the steps for good expectations management setting, that you will be in a position to set expectations in agreement with this person, but also have this person set expectations with you and have absolute total clarity about what is reasonable to be expected and what is not reasonable to be expected. What I hear from the description of the problem, there are situations where the person expects you to do things which you're not able or willing or have the time to do. And that creates this messy situation. So that needs to be blown out and blown away and cleared up so that you do a proper expectations exercise with this person, having the person telling you what the expectations are. You will take a position saying, yeah, I will fulfill or not your expectation because you're not being reasonable. And the outcome of that could be that you're going to have to part ways, because if you don't have common ground to satisfy each other's expectations, you're going to work together. Simple as that. It's not a threat. It's
Yeah.
just the way life works.
Mhm.
Or now both are going to know exactly what's expected from each other. You are responsible. And then the next step I strongly advise is agree on predictable consequences from the start.
Yeah.
What's going to happen if we don't meet expectations? What do you expect me to do? So if I'm the boss and you're working with me and we are working together and I'm the boss, and you give me an expectation that I agree with and I'm not fulfilling, I will expect you to go to my boss and have a talk with him and see that
Yeah.
you both can get me to do what I need to do because I'm failing. So authority
Yeah.
will not be, I'm not going to pull rank or authority, but you need the culture to do that. So I would say start on mindset, clear and solidify, clarify the mindset, set up a proper expectations, exchange and exercise, and have predictable consequences. And after that, I'll say, good luck with it.
Yeah, that's absolutely direct to the point, because from what this manager is saying, they've been going around this in circles. Yeah.
Not unusual. Not
Yeah.
unusual. Yeah.
Yeah. Right. And the subordinate was even like, but you need to tell me what I need to do in order to work.
Yeah. Some jobs
So
where the person is underqualified for the position could well be. Could well be.
that's true. That's true. Yeah. So managing expectations is a really, really good tool to use in the situation. Well, okay. So that was all for today's podcast where we talk about problem solving. But again, we're going to circle back to this topic one day. And we do encourage everyone who's listening or watching from YouTube to submit your questions or any experience or advice that you could share with us. We really welcome it. We want to start a conversation with you.
Let us
And
know if there's specific aspects or questions or topics within problem solving that you would like us to give priority to next time.
yeah, and we'll totally create a podcast around that. After all, this podcast is for you. Okay, so until the next podcast, this has been Joanna.
And your analog dinosaur at your service.
Yes, our founder, Mr. Jorge Lobo. And we'll see you all again next time. Bye.
Next week. Bye-bye.